begin just kind of reading what mother has said on Savitri. Reggie?
Sure.
Yeah.
It does not matter if you do not understand it, but read it always. You will see that every time you read it, there will be something new revealed to you. Each time you find something new, each time a new experience, things which were not there, things you did not understand arise and suddenly become clear. Always something unexpected comes through the words and lines. Every time you read, every time you try to read and understand, you will see something is added, something which was hidden behind is revealed clearly and vividly. I tell you that even the verses you have read before will appear to you in a different light each time you reread them. This kind of things happen invariably. Always it is something which enriches your experience. Always a revelation at each step. Savitri alone is sufficient to make you climb to the high rungs of the ladder. If truly one can meditate upon it, all the help one needs is found there for him who wishes to follow the path. It is concrete help, as though the Lord Himself were taking you by the hand and leading you to the destined goal. And then, every question, however personal it may be, has its answer here. For every difficult there has been traced the means of surmounting it. Indeed, there is everything necessary to do yoga. He has crammed the whole universe into a single book. It is a marvelous work, magnificent of incomparable perfection.
Thank you, Reggie.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, so I first of all want to share that I know that many of us are feeling a bit kind of anxious also, and maybe incapable, or that how can we understand something which appears like Greek and Latin uh, to us. And I would say that I completely empathize, because for me also it's the same. The situation has definitely improved over the past few years. A few years ago, I could not even kind of think of picking up Savitri. That was the condition. And now, owing through the experiences one goes through, a few lines, a few verses come really alive in front of you, and that is what gave me the strength. Okay, the connection is lost. So
Can hear you, Monica.
So I'm sorry, the connection was lost. I just put it on mobile hotspot. Now it should be okay. So yeah, so I was saying that no matter if it may appear Greek and Latin, as slowly we go through our life experiences, and as we give ourselves a chance to immerse in the words, as mother has said, slowly it reveals itself to you. So it would not be a active, trying to understand and struggling what Sri Aurobindo is trying to say. That would not be the way that we will be going, and that is not the way, as mother has clearly said. Mother has clearly said it does not matter if you do not understand it. So it means that we cannot go wrong. The worst that can happen is that we may not understand it. Okay, and we must be prepared for it. So I am prepared that okay, the worst that can happen is that I would not be able to understand it. The very fact that the mother is with me and the mother will remain with me even if I don't understand, I think that is really kind of a bringer of peace. So the the kind of base that we begin with is that mother is guiding us through. And if even if worst can happen that I may not understand it, even then mother will be with me, so we don't lose anything, we just explore. So we are here for an exploration. We are not here to put it like a medal on our kind of shirt that, okay, I have read Savitri, and oh, okay, thanks Taru for sharing. So that is how it is going to be. And again, that said, I am uh, just sharing this kind of a common platform as I am doing this research or this kind of immersion with Savitri in my own life. So I don't want to tell you that I am the master of this class, because I am not. I am an equal participant, and I myself have no idea how this is going to go. But the thing is that as I was beginning to immerse more and more in Savitri, I said, why not, let's do it together. So as I'm sure some of you might have been thinking, let's read Savitri, or at least begin to approach it. And then we are kind of stopped or paused at various instances that we are not able to bring it kind of in our life. So this is just an invitation that we can do it together. And of course, I have some material which I have prepared through my own research on Savitri, listening to some stuff, maybe some books, some older conversations, and that is what I have compiled and kind of try to give it a shape. So in the meantime, in the course of our studies, if whenever you feel that, okay, now I can go ahead with Savitri on my own and I don't want to discuss it, that is perfectly fine. You can leave the group and go ahead by yourself. The idea is that we should not be feeling apprehensive that I don't want to even pick up Savitri. It should not be Greek and Latin for us. So pick up Savitri, read it as Mother had said, no matter if we are reading together or not together, it doesn't matter. Also, in the course of time, as we will go ahead, if you do your own research, happen to do your own research, and if you have something worthwhile to add and share on the group of whatever we are reading and going through, it will be really nice if you can bring it and share it with us. Okay, so with that, let me just go through it once again. So it doesn't matter if you do not understand it. Yes, that is what we are going to do, but read it always. That is what we will be doing. And each time we will be finding something new, some new experience. And the thing in Savitri is, this is all Mother's and Sri Aurobindo's own experiences that have been put into these lines. So Mother, once, I think there is one comment from the Mother that only I can understand and tell you what each line represents in Savitri, because Mother has gone through those experiences. And as a human being, we also go through those experiences, some of them. And that is how Savitri will slowly get revealed to us. In the sense, if I have been through such and such kind of an experience, then those words, those lines will become alive for me. Rest may still be obscure, but only those may kind of pop up for me in front. Yeah. Further, always something unexpected comes through the words and lines. Yeah. And as it is with any good book, whenever we read it, if I read it after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, something new is revealed in the same lines to me. So that is the case with Savitri. That it'll reveal again more hidden dimensions will come forward as we progress in our own earthly experiences. Yeah. And then Mother and Sri Aurobindo both have said that Savitri alone, don't even have to pick up any other book. Savitri alone is sufficient to make you climb to the high rungs of the ladder. It means that the consciousness moves towards the divine. It's like a ladder, Savitri becomes a ladder for you to climb towards the divine, if truly one can meditate upon it. Yeah, all the help is there in Savitri if we are able to decode it. And again, as Mother has also said, that there might be some parts in Savitri which you are able to understand through mind, but most of it is meditative. So whenever you read Savitri, I think there is another comment from the Mother that how to read it. So let me find it if I have right now. So Mother said that you really have to be very calm and quiet, and then read maybe a few lines and just leave it there. Meditate upon it. Maybe before sleeping, you can pick up the book and just go through it, a few lines, and then sleep with those lines. So that's really interesting. One can do that. Uh, Yeah. So just a few lines of introduction on Savitri first. If you have any questions in between, just unmute and speak up or say it in the chat window. Yeah. So yes. So here Mother says Savitri is occult knowledge and spiritual experience. This is words of the Mother, that the expression in Savitri is too high and vast for the understanding of present humanity. That is what has been said. It does not mean that we will not pick it up and not try to understand. We will pick it up and we'll ask Mother to guide us. We will ask Mother and Sri Aurobindo, because without their blessings, without their support, we cannot understand Savitri. It is impossible. Savitri cannot be understood by an ego. It has to be understood as a servant of the divine. Mother, make me understand. That kind of a prayer. Yeah. So I'll be just consulting my notes in between, and then I'll be sharing with you. So Savitri, by many scholars, has also been kind of considered as a spiritual autobiography of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. That is the path they have taken in this human birth that they had. The whole path has been described. What is the path? I'll share what is the path in short time. So here, Mother says some parts of Savitri can be understood mentally, but much of it needs the same knowledge and experience or understanding. So as I shared earlier, that because Mother went through all experiences, and that is why it was only the Mother who could exactly tell what is happening in which line. Um, so Mother says that if you have not been through experiences in your life, it's impossible just to mentally understand it and grasp what it is trying to say. So we'll have to put the mind a little aside and maybe consult it in between the mind. Okay, so any one of you, before I begin to explain the beginning, anyone of you is aware of the story of Savitri and Satyavan in Mahabharat? Would you like to just quickly tell us about it, if any one of you have read the story or heard about the story? It'll be nice to hear from any one of you. Just kind of the legend of Savitri as in Mahabharata. Yes, Taru, please.
Okay, so I don't know how much of it I would get it right, but based on what I'd seen, so basically there was this girl Savitri who was a princess, like she was a daughter of a king, and the
Loud.
king obviously. You can't hear me? Is this better?
Yeah, better.
Okay, sorry. So I'll start again. So basically, Savitri was a princess, and she kind of turned into a marriageable age. So her father wanted to get her married. So she one day came to her father and said, "Okay, I've already selected who would be my mate, like who would be my husband." And then she told her father about Satyavan, that this is Satyavan was basically a prince, but his father had lost the kingdom, like due to some reasons. I don't know the reasons, but now they were living in a forest where Savitri saw him, and I mean, she liked him instantaneously. I don't know the reasons again. So there was a guru in the court, and he told everybody that this is not a good match because Satyavan just has one more year to live. So, but Savitri's father, the king, he said that he really tried to entice his daughter, saying that, I'll do a swamber for you. The best of kings and princes would come, prince would come. Why are you going after a guy who's living in a forest? But she was really hellbound, and she was like, I have decided, even if it's 1 year, I want Satyavan to be my husband. So finally, the father had to relent because Savitri wasn't taking no for an answer. So and then they got married, and just as the guru had predicted, after 1 year, the Satyavan died. And then the story started that Savitri basically in a sense, started following Kal. when he came to take Satyavan with, she just started walking behind him. I don't know what symbolically what that means, but that's what I saw. That Kal was walking and Savitri started walking behind him. And then the Kal got pissed off that why are you following me? Go and cry and stuff. And she was like, yeah, I had taken a pratigya that I'll follow my husband wherever and I can't, let go of him. So there was a lot of questions back and forth in which, I mean, I don't remember those exactly, but then she kind of got her father-in-law's kingdom back, and her father-in-law had lost his eyesight, so she demanded that back. And finally she asked for a boon of 100 kids. So he said, fine, now just leave me and go. So but then she said, "Ki, how will I ever have 100 kids if you're taking my husband away, and I obviously can't have kids with anybody else." So she kind of tricked Zakar to return Satyavan back to her. So that's basically what I know. That's it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah. So this Savitri, as Sri Aurobindo has written, he has taken it forward as a legend and a symbol. So what Taru just narrated to us is the legend of Savitri and Satyavan as narrated in Mahabharata. And what Sri Aurobindo has done is he has added symbolism to each and every kind of, the character. And that is what is really, really, I think it gave me really goosebumps the first day I kind of came through it. It really is kind of revelatory what these characters stand for. So today I'll be sharing along with, a few references. I'll be sharing what I have read and what really kind of gives it a nice starting how to go about it. So before that, I'll share the story of creation as narrated by the mother. So we all wonder, what is this happening in the world? Why is this world created, and what is the function of it? Why are we suffering and all that? So mother has given us a story where she says that there was this supreme Purusha, the only one that was there in the beginning, and then out of kind of a curiosity to manifest himself, he manifested a power out of himself. Imagine that I have a clay in hand, and I am kind of from that clay itself I begin to make a pipe. So that is manifesting a pipe out of the clay. So it cannot be said that the pipe is different that I'm making from the clay, because the clay itself is becoming the pipe now. So that is how he manifested himself, the supreme Purusha. And he manifested, the first aspect that he manifested was Aditi or Shakti, Chit Shakti, that is consciousness, knowledge, and force, power to create, the creatrix. So Aditi, that is what he kind of manifested out of himself, the supreme. And then he asked Aditi that you begin the manifestation of the earth. You begin creation. Sorry, you begin to create out of you. So Aditi, what she does is Aditi employs four of her own powers to create the world. The powers were consciousness, bliss, truth, and life. Consciousness, which is knowledge or understanding, consciousness, bliss, truth, and life. These were the four powers with Aditi manifests out of herself, and gives them the charge. Okay, you go ahead and create the manifestation. You create the creation. And then what happens is, I would like to at this point share a picture with you. Let me see, which uh, I put it on Drive, because that picture would tell you what I mean by this creation of from Aditi. And in the meantime, I'll just go ahead. So she told all those four powers as their workers, ki, go ahead and create the manifestation. So these four powers begin to create the universe, the world. And in this process of creating the universe, they forgot that they were connected to Aditi or the Supreme. So they kind of became really self-dependent, saying that I know what to do. Just a second, let me share this. Now it's the right time for the picture to be shared. Uh, This was for the creation of the whole universe. Yes, just a second. How to... I'm just preparing that image so that I can share that image with you. Done. And then I'll download this and share. Yeah. Downloads. So I'm sharing this image here. You can open it and see it for yourself. All of you, it's in the chat window. So this is something which kind of came to me, that it, just a visual, that the source and supreme Aditi are the same. So Aditi and supreme are the same. There is hardly any difference. And then they kind of bring out their four powers. And the problem comes that the connection from the source becomes cut. So all these four manifestations, they think that I am sufficient into myself and I can do without the divine, I can do without the source. And that is where the problem happened. That is where the disconnection happened. And what they created, when they really kind of went down uh, to the level of manifestation, what they did, and especially we will now be focusing on earth, because rest of the realms I haven't read much about it, so I'll share what I understand. um, so these powers became, as they disconnected from the source. For example, just looking at the picture, you can see that if I have a source of light and if these pipes are there which are carrying that light, what will happen if I cut that light from the source? Everything will become dark in those pipes. So that is what happens with these powers: consciousness, bliss, truth, and love. Oh, I'm so sorry. I put it here and I didn't send it to you. Yeah, here it is. Yeah. So just have a look and imagine that the source of the light in these pipes. Say, imagine that there are translucent pipes and they can carry the uh, energy and light of the source ahead. What they did was, as they become separated from the divine source, the sun, the essence, there was complete darkness in those pipes, and that happened because of the disconnection from the source, because they had to kind of fall from very greater heights to a very lower level. And in that really a huge fall, this disconnection happened. And is it actually, it is said that it was a fault, it was a mistake, the first creation was a mistake. And now what is happening, a mother has a very interesting thing here. Let me just read it out. So mother says, yeah, mother laughs. So once this has occurred, the divine consciousness turns toward the supreme. Once this, the failure happened, and mother laughs at this and says, well, here is what has happened and now what is to be done. So Aditi is now talking to the supreme that, this is what happened. I gave them the charge and they've created something completely ulta, what had to be created. So consciousness became inconscious, or light becomes darkness, bliss became suffering, truth became untruth or falsehood, and life became death. This is what happened when the divine essence separated from these powers. And now Aditi is asking the supreme, what is to be done now, how to correct it. So from for the supreme said, we'll do a second creation. And in the second creation, supreme himself became a part. So Aditi, or the divine mother herself, became a part. And it is said that the second creation was a graded kind of a creation. For example, imagine that there is a ladder going to the sun, so that each rung of the ladder is connected by the other rungs to the sun. There is no kind of a great fall or gap in between, right? So this is how the second creation came into the manifestation. And further, I'm just taking up my notes on this. If you have any question, you can type. If I can answer, I'll see. If I cannot, you will be with yourself for the question. Yeah. Okay. So now, why I told you this story of the creation, because we will be using this, the symbols, the Dyumat Sena, Ashupati. Ashupati is second version. Second version is, the layers of consciousness. So Sri Aurobindo refers to it as overmind. So the first is the supermind, which is the sun, source of the knowledge. Below it comes the overmind. Overmind ke niche illumined mind, uske niche intuitive mind, higher mind, and then the mind that we have, the human mind, or human mind is even below that. So that is how it is all connected. All these, it's like a ladder going up to the divine. So I'm waiting for you to type your questions. Yes, yes. Taru, I would like you to stay with the question, because I don't think I can answer that. How did the conversion happen? How did the mistake happen? I cannot answer that. So I would like you to stay with the question. Maybe in the course of Savitri, or maybe in your other readings, we'll get to know about it. Yeah. Yes, this is Sri Aurobindo's and mother explanation of involution. Abhi to evolution shuru nahi hua, Reggie. So Reggie, evolution is when this darkness that was created goes back to the divine. Yeah, that is evolution. Abhi ho raha hai involution, right? Yes. So yeah, so the rungs of the ladder, or the second creation, or the graded creation, was like, we have supermind, which is the source, then we have the overmind, then we have the illumined mind, then you have the higher mind. So don't bother much about understanding this. Just take the information and see what you can do with it. Even if you don't get the information, it doesn't matter much. What matters is that we are at Savitri. So and slowly I'll tell you why I told you the story of creation, because through these the symbolism will be taken up, the symbols of who is Ashwapati. Ashwapati is the father of Savitri, and he is said to be the lord of horse, Ashwapati, lord of tapasya. So we will be going to that from here. So in short, this is the story of creation from the mother. If you want to read more on it, I am sure you'll find it on Google and elsewhere. You can go into depths and see what you explore. And if you find something else, do share with us in the next class. So let's go ahead and see why are these symbols then there. Ashupati, Satyavan, Supreme. Uh, okay, Aditi. So let me see if I've kind of missed on anything. Okay. So Satyavan refers to the soul of earth, to the soul of mankind, which has fallen into ignorance. Fallen into ignorance means that it has separated from the divine essence. There is a big wall in front of Satyavan, which is the true. Actually, it's part of the divine only. Soul is part of the divine. But it has forgotten, it has plunged into the ignorance and misery and suffering, and it has forgotten that it has divine essence. So that was again because of the fall of consciousness that happened due to the first creation. Now what is happening now, right now, is that we see all around there is suffering. We see we are so much in our egos, we live in our egos, and we are not able to let it go. Now that is the fall of consciousness, that we have become separated in the forest of the ego. It's like a trap that I have got myself into. Although my essence is divine, my soul is divine. In theory, I know that. But in practical terms, I still feel lost in the forest, as if plunged into a darkness. So the first creation was a mistake. To correct that mistake, they created a second creation, which was a hierarchical creation. Again, as I told you, supermind, overmind, coming up to down, supermind, overmind, illumine mind, higher mind, mind, life, matter, subconscient, and inconscient. I'm going from up to down. And as some of you have read, I think Taru also read one book where it was said that first we appear as a stone. The first birth that we take is as a stone. Then we appear as plant. Then we appear as animal. And then slowly human life appears. So each soul has to go through this kind of a consciousness, a kind of an evolution. Now the evolution is happening for going back to the divine again. So the circle is complete. I hope I'm making myself clear. So the first avatar, as they say it, is the descent of supreme, the divine, into the inconscient. जो consciousness उल्टी हो गई, separate होके अपने divine essence से inconscious बन गई, अब उसमें supreme ने अपना एक अंश भेजा है. वो अंश जो है, that is the soul. That is Satyavan. Satyavan is the soul of the earth or of the man, which is finding, striving, aspiring for light, because somewhere it knows that light is what I am made of. So taking a few lines from Savitri on this aspect of Satyavan, he is the Godhead growing in human lives. He is the Godhead growing in human lives. He is my soul that gropes out of the beast, the human beast that we are, the human animal that we are. Supreme is saying, he is my soul that gropes out of the beast to reach humanity's heights. So the humanity's heights cannot be achieved if the union with the divine is not achieved. Because in essence, we all are divine. It's only because of the fall, the trap that we are into, we cannot get that we are divine. To us, it feels like, somebody is saying theory, honge divine, but I don't know because I don't experience it in life. So for us, that darkness has become so real that we are not ready to accept that divine is what I am. We are not ready to accept. And that is why at some place, Mother says that human beings are in love with their suffering. They don't want to accept that they are divine. So this is the fall of the consciousness. Again, going back to some few lines on Satyavan. Satyavan is soul of man climbing to God. Look at this line, beautiful line. Soul of man climbing to God. Now this is how symbolism is coming into picture. For now, what the story that we heard of Mahabharata, it was a distant story. I don't know who Satyavan is. It is not a part of my life. Now this is why it becomes important. Satyavan is my soul wanting to climb to the God, to the divine. And that is how it becomes important. Savitri becomes important to me. At the moment it is plunged into the inconscience or into ignorance. Again, ignorance means that I am unaware of my potential. I am unaware of my divinity. That is what ignorance means. For me, life that I see around becomes more reality than the divinity that I am. The divine soul who has come down into the inconscient now has to what to do? Now has to climb to the God to begin the process of evolution. And that is why many Sant and Gyanis have said that human birth is precious. Human birth is precious because it is one of the rungs of the ladder which is completing the circle towards the divine. So we came from the divine and we are going back to the divine. So the problem comes when we stick to this I. Actually, if you see the whole game, I is nowhere in the picture. It's his play. He created it. It was his first creation, which got bad, and he has to bring it back. So the only task that we have to do is to collaborate this evolution in the part of evolution. That is what the only thing that we have to do. And the problem, the bhasar that we create is by sticking to the I, that separation, that I am separate from the divine and I want to be separate from the divine. And there we become a roda in this process of evolution to the divine. Yeah. So all this aspiration, all this seeking, all this wanting for light that we all have, all human beings have, this is coming from the soul. This is coming from the intensity of the soul to seek the divine and go back and merge into the divine. Because soul at the moment is plunged into darkness in the lifestyles that we have, that have become more real for us than the divine presence. So that is the process of evolution. If you have any question, you can type. So after this, I'll be taking the characters. So Satyavan ho gaya. Satyavan is the soul plunged into the darkness. Now Savitri, as I will come later to Savitri again and again. Savitri is the divine mother who has now agreed that yes, the first creation got bad and now it's my duty to bring everything out into the light, to transform death. And this is how again the legend comes into the picture, to transform death to the light. As Savitri is conversing with the death, the lord of death, Yam. So Yam asks her, show me your true face, Savitri, so that I can bow down to you. And then she reveals that she is the supreme mother. Savitri is the supreme mother. And then death transforms. Death transfigures itself into the light. So that is the task of Savitri, and that is how, that is the power that is present in the mother. The mother and Sri Aurobindo, the mother came to us as a human being, and that is, if we see divine in the human being, most of us cannot even recognize it. And I think it's good that we are now relating with the mother and uh, not when she was present, because I don't know if she was, when she was there, we will be able to recognize her that she is the divine mother. It's so hard for us human beings to understand this, that yes, divine can come to take you out, and his ways are so weird. It's difficult for us to understand why is mother saying what she's saying. So the presence of the mother, invoking mother in your life, is as if that you are handing your hand, which is plunged in darkness, over to the divine mother, that yes, mother, you have come here to pick me up, and I am holding your hand now. I am giving you my hand. And if we are not able to use mother's availability, I think it's really a pity if we are not able to. So yeah, the next character is Dumat Sena. So Dumat Sena is uh, blind, and he is the father of Satyavan. Dumat Sena is blind, and he is also called Lord of Shining Hosts. I'll just type it, Shining Hosts. So what has been revealed to me in my kind of readings until now is that he is the lord of a brilliant mind, Dumat Sena. So it's also referring to the consciousness, that consciousness in general is full of light. It's inconscient that is plunged into darkness. So Dumat Sena has all the capacity. He has a very, very brilliant mind, just as we human beings have. But he is now turned blind, and he has lost his kingdom. He cannot use the brilliance of his mind because of being blind. Again, the fall into a lower consciousness of the mind. So it's Dumat Sena is representing consciousness turned into inconscience. So consciousness has full capacity, full brilliance, full light, but when it becomes inconscience, then it cannot do anything. It is incapable, it is suffering. And that is what is happening when they are trapped in the forest. They are living in a forest, right? They have lost their kingdom. Now, next, going on to Ashwapati. Ashwapati is the father of Savitri, and he represents human suffering actually, and he's also called Lord of Tapasya. I'll tell you why. And Ashwapati, by the name, literally it signifies Lord of Horse. So he has the horse power, he has the power, he is Lord of Tapasya. So he has that spiritual endeavor that yes, I will climb up to the god and resolve the suffering. But at the moment, Ashwapati is without any children, and he is suffering. So he has all the potential again. He has all the potential to climb up to the heavens and bring light down. But because of the absence of that light, he has been suffering. So what he does is Ashupati, in an order to seek divinity, in an order to want children for himself, he does tapasya. He does penance, and through that, we'll see what happens later. He brings down Savitri. So Ashupati represents Lord of Tapasya or Lord of spiritual endeavor, which at the moment is plunged into suffering at the moment, because there is no joy, lack of children, there is no joy in his life. So going further, um, yes, going further, taking Satyavan again. So Satyavan is the growing soul of the man, which has the truth, but it is caught in untruth. Now, the picture that I shared with you, all these four powers, consciousness, truth, bliss, and life. Now, see how they are connecting. So, consciousness we connected with Dyumatsena, and truth we connected with Satyavan. Satyavan is the carrier of truth, the soul. We say na, we say so many times that, we should hear the call of your inner truth. So that is what our soul represents, the truth. But at the moment it is caught in untruth. It cannot see itself at all. So that is truth, Satyavan. And Ashupati represents suffering. So bliss turned into suffering, that is Ashupati. And that is why he wants bliss again through the presence of children. That is why he wants 100 children. So 100 is a representation. 100 means fullness in life. So bliss is absent in life, suffering is there. So that's why he's seeking for 100 children for himself. And then we have which character is left now? As we go ahead, we'll see. Life to death. So life to death is just like, now Satyavan, truth has plunged into darkness and it has become death. And that is what Savitri now is aiming for, that she wants life for truth, which is the representation of Satyavan. So she wants to bring back to life the truth, which is Satyavan. That is what the task of Divine Mother is when she gave herself in the second creation. So Savitri is a redemption. Savitri, the Divine Mother, she comes as for a redemption, so that she can transform death into immortality, and suffering to bliss, and truth to untruth to back to truth. Now she is asking Yama for the boons. We'll again come back later in as we go ahead in Savitri. So Savitri asks for the boons as per the story in the Mahabharata, and she asks for Dyumatsena to have eyes and to have back his kingdom. So see how they are related. So she is asking for the consciousness, which has now become totally unconscious, to have eyes so that it can see. So now it can become consciousness again. So inconscience, which is separated from the divine essence, should become consciousness again. It should become bright light again. And to have its kingdom back. The kingdom was the Lord of shining hosts, the kingdom of the brilliant mind. So at the moment we are not even able to, our human mind is so much plunged in misery that we are not able to use its potential that it has. That's because on loop we have stories running in our head, throughout the day. And that is what Savitri is asking, that the mind should be capable of receiving higher knowledge, and that can only happen when it turns to the divine. And that is what Savitri is asking, the boon. The second boon that she asks is 100 children for Ashwapati. Now Ashwapati, as we said earlier, is bliss turned into suffering. So it has all the horsepower, but at the moment it's suffering. So Ashwapati, when she wants 100 children for Ashwapati, it means that the suffering he is having right now should turn into a fullness of bliss. That is what 100 represents. And in the third boon, she asks for 100 children for myself with Satyavan. So this means that this is beautiful. I really found it so beautiful when I heard this. That Satyavan के साथ जब सावित्री कह रही हैं कि मुझे 100 children चाहिए. Now Satyavan represents truth consciousness, soul. It means that a new race, a new human race is what Savitri is asking for, which is full of purity and full of a life lived by inner truth. So that is what Savitri is asking. She's asking that I should have 100 children with Satyavan, children of a new race, a new human race, which lives by the inner truth, so that the ignorance is not there, untruth is not there, falsehood is not there. And it's the ego which plunges us into the falsehood. So this is what Savitri is asking. And the last boon is obviously the return of Satyavan to life, so that untruth becomes truth again, and the soul which is now plunged into darkness, it kind of, it gains a new life, so that the soul itself is capable of shining through this human body, which at the moment doesn't happen because the veil of ego is so hard, the veil of ego is so thick. Yeah. So any questions at any comments at this point? Are you all awake? Or maybe I just told too much on the first day. Wait a minute. Okay. Fine, ठीक है. So again, so this is the beginning of Savitri. This is how the characters are placed, and this is the significance also of Savitri. So Savitri is the story of the Divine Mother wanting to redeem Earth to its full potential. And that is why it becomes really important, because we are a part of Earth, and it's important for us to understand, to know why we are suffering, and is there a need for suffering, and how we can bring ourselves back to the divine bliss, if it is possible. And if it is possible, then it's our birthright. Why should we be away from it for any single moment? So yeah, and with that said, how will we be reading Savitri? So again, as I said, we can go through these lines slowly, and I'll pick up as many lines as possible of whatever I kind of understand through my research, and bring it to your, to here for sharing. And Mother says that it is very important that when we are reading Savitri, a calm mind is very important. So that is why early hours of, or whenever you are silent, whenever you are alone, then read a few pages, read a few lines, and just leave it there. Invoke the Mother, read a few pages, and just leave it there. So calm mind and inner poise is very important. And also these words, we don't even know they are working. Just like, if I ask a doctor to give me a medicine and I am suffering of some disease, I don't even know how the medicine is working, but the medicine is working. So just thinking that I don't understand Savitri and why should I read it, it means that I don't want to take the medicine that is prepared for me, so full of love. And it's just a matter of time that these words, the words will be revealed to me. So I would take it like that, that in faith, take these words, no matter whether we understand or not, we will be reading Savitri, and maybe a few lines, few words we will understand, maybe rest of them we don't at this moment, which is completely fine. Yeah. And even at this moment, as I am talking, research is ongoing in Savitri, because it's an endless journey. Savitri, many scholars, many researchers are doing research on Savitri. Some have done PhD on Savitri. It's so deep and vast and wide that it's unfathomable. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Taru is asking inner poise can you elaborate on this a bit? How to inculcate this? So I have taken a very short path towards inner poise, and I can only share that. The shortest path that I found in my life is to remember the mother all the time. So all the time, whenever you are doing anything, whenever you are not doing anything, try to remember the mother as much as you can. Because see, we are remembering things. It's not that we are empty. I cannot say that, my life is completely fine, my mind is silent, because it's not. So instead of the loop of stories going on in my head, in my being, I think what has really helped me is invoking mother's presence and staying with the mother. That is how I personally connect with inner poise. So whenever something external is happening, again, stay within your body, as if you are having an inner eye now, which is kind of peeping into your body and seeing the movements there, and seeing what is happening. अभी कहाँ कहाँ हिल रही हूँ, कहाँ कहाँ नहीं हिल रही, these, और कौन सी अभी कोई आइडेंटिटी है जो चिपक रही है, कौन सी चीज है जो हिला रही है. So these observations constantly go on as one remains in the inner poise. So I would say, I can just recommend, obviously for every person it would be a different thing, but for me what has worked is, and still working, is the more I may remember the mother staying within my body, the more inner poise I feel in myself. Yes, thank you for asking this. Yeah, it's a very short path, and the human mind wants complicated stuff. So we are ready to do an MBA or PhD for 4 years and put our brains into it, just because it is very complicated. It's very sophisticated, and the thing here that I found is, even Kabir talks of a sahaj way, a simple way. It's so simple that it obscures the mind. The mind turns silent. You know, some of you may ask, or maybe some others may ask, just remembering the mother, just that's all. Because we think that unless it's like a 10-page theory, it's not worth it. And that is how we kind of become blinded. Just like Jumat Sena is blind, we also become blinded because we don't realize that yes, only one remembering the mother is enough. It obscures the mind goes mad when he hears this, because we have been conditioned to so complicated theories all our lives. So yes, for me, remembering the mother and Sri Aurobindo, and uh, also taking them along in this adventure that we are doing, and being prepared to get failed, because as I said in the beginning, that even if we fail, even if we have to kind of close down this Savitri session, doesn't matter. Mother was with us and mother is with us. That is what matters. And this is what kind of a mad feeling that I kind of picked up. Just I picked up when earlier sessions happened. So just a kind of I got a hint, depression, mother on depression. And I followed that hint. It was not that I got very convinced that yes, this is what I must do. It was just a very, very fleeting feeling. Most of the time we ignore such kind of a feeling. But the more you remain in the inner poise, these feelings become reality. You become mad to follow these feelings. And then it doesn't matter if you are failing. So you're ready to give it a try. And earlier sessions also happened like this. They were just a feeling. Okay, now illness and health, now depression, now maybe, a session on Kabir. And I just followed that blindly. So that is how we remain in inner poise and let the mother do her work. Yeah. Because when I am obscuring my consciousness with lots of thoughts, in fact, on this, let me share something from Sri Aurobindo. Yeah. So, Sri Aurobindo wrote letters on Savitri, where he was communicating with people who were helping him, correcting Savitri, revising Savitri, at all, these kind of things. So he said, let me go to the page. It's beautiful what he said. one line and so powerful. So he said, I don't think about the technique because thinking is no longer in my line. Look at what Sri Aurobindo is saying. Now, he has written an epic poem coming from the overmind or maybe the supermind, and he's saying, he's answering a sadhak who is asking something on Savitri, and he's saying, I don't think about the technique because thinking is no longer in my line. So all these words that you see in Savitri, they are not out of an active process of thinking. It's because his mind has become so calm, so peaceful. That mind is serving as a receptacle to now download the information from the overmind and the supermind. So he is receiving the grace from the supermind and overmind. And that is what he is writing in Savitri. That is what the consciousness is of Savitri. And that is why the mother has said, just no matter what, read it, because the words have a power. Yeah. And then further Sri Aurobindo says, but I see and feel for it. So he's seeing these words, he's feeling these lines that he's writing. And when lines are coming through and afterwards in revision of the work, I see them again. So he says that I don't actively think what the lines are being downloaded. I just see the line, feel it essence, and I pour it down on the paper. And later on in my revision, I see what is to be done. Then further he says that I don't bother about the details while writing. So when the Savitri as a epic was coming down to him over a matter of years, over a period of years, he says, I don't bother about the details while writing because that would only hamper my inspiration. So the more doubtful you become that whether this is coming, is it rhythmic, is it poetic, these things, these kind of doubts and confusions, they become a hamper in become an obstacle in the process of inspiration that he is receiving. It's like Ganges is flowing, from up to down, and you are blocking the path of the flow. I let it come through without interference, only pausing if there is an obvious inadequacy felt, in which case I uh, conclude that it is a wrong inspiration. Now, here comes an egolessness, a selflessness. So, you are receiving grace, you are receiving something, and you feel that something is not right. So, that is what he's saying, that I feel that there is a sense of inadequacy, in which case I conclude. Now, he's so objectively, beautifully concluding that yes, this is a wrong inspiration, and I can maybe cut off this line, and this line may be not needed, because what he wants is uh, to give us the highest possible. He doesn't want any inferior level of inspiration to come in between. So he's saying that if I receive a line which I see on an inferior level, I disregard it or cut it. If the inspiration is the right one, then I have not to bother about the technique. So he says that I don't care if it fits in the previous theories of being poetic or rhythmic or whatever. It's just what I received, and this is perfect, So he doesn't even bother about it. Yeah, yeah. So this is what he said. And Sri Aurobindo started writing Savitri in 1916. And even while he was kind of leaving his physical body, I think 1930s, late 1930s, even then he was doing the work, revisiting again and again, and kind of he wanted to make sure that it is as perfect, as beautiful, and as coming from the highest domains possible that he can give, offer to the mankind. So he says about this as well, that he kind of revised and perfected and perfected and perfected it until he was there in his physical body. And then in one sentence he says that some of the old kind of writings in Savitri, I have not perfected them. Why? Because there I see that Overmind's influence was there. So although I had written it way back in 1916, but I see that Overmind's influence is there, and I don't have to kind of perfect it anymore. It is just perfect as it is. Yeah. So that is there kind of what I had to say today, kind of initiate you with the characters and uh, the theory a little bit, the theory of creation. And I had thought that what we can do is we can all read a few lines from first from Savitri, one by one, like 10 lines each from Savitri. What do you say? If you're ready, then we can do that. Yeah. Okay. So, all of you, do you have the PDF, or shall I share it in the window? If you don't have, I don't know how to screen share. I can't see any screen share here. Share screen. Okay. Shall I share the screen, or do you have the PDF with you? Let me just. Finder window. Savitri. Okay, great. So do you see my screen? In that case, I can also share it on the screen for those of you who don't have it. Yeah. Okay, opening it now. Okay. So just let me know if you see the screen. Uh, do you see Sri Aurobindo's picture here on the screen? Okay, great. Yeah, perfect. Okay, beautiful. So let's just take a moment, and I'm typing who should go first, and then we can take it ahead. So that there is no confusion. So we will take 1 minute to remember Sri Aurobindo and the mother, asking them for strength to be with us, and then Aradhana can begin.
Okay, so can I start now?
Yes, Aradhana.
Okay. It was the hour before the god awake, across the path of the divine event, the huge forbidding mind of night alone, in her unlit temple of eternity, lay stretched, immobile upon silence marge. Almost one felt opaque, impenetrable, in the somber symbol of her eyeless muse. The abysm of the unbodied infinite, a fathomless zero occupied the world, a power of fallen, boundless self awake between the first and the last nothingness. Recalling the tenebrous womb from which it came, turned from the insoluble mystery of birth and the tardy process of mortality, and longed to reach its end in the vacant knot. So, Monica, for how long do I have to read it?
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
enough. Yeah, I think
Okay.
this much you can read. Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe, and the more slow you are with these words, the more you can feel their presence.
Sure.
So yeah, again, is no right and wrong here, but
Mhm.
as mother has said that you need to be really taking it as a mantra, go very, very slowly and try to make it as alive for you as possible.
Mhm. Okay.
So maybe you can read 10 more lines until the whirl, and then we can hand over to Simi.
Uh, where was it? Okay.
So you were at not.
Yeah, yeah. As in a dark beginning of all things, a mute, featureless semblance of the unknown, repeating forever the unconscious act, prolonging forever the unseen will, cradled the cosmic drowse of ignorant force, whose moved creative slumber kindles the sun and carries our lives in its somberest whirl outward the vain, enormous trance of space, its formless stupor without mind or life, a shadow spinning through a soulless void. Thrown back once more into unthinking dreams, earth wheeled abandoned in the hollow gulfs, forgetful of her spirit and her fate. The impassive skies were neutral, empty, still. Then something in the unscrutable darkness stirred, a nameless movement, an unthought idea.
Yeah, Simi. Simi, are you there?
Can you hear
Okay,
me?
maybe Taru can go. Simi, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Monica, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Maybe you can go ahead and read this page.
Yeah, just a moment. There's a slight difficulty in enlarging the print. And yeah.
Can you see the screen? Is it possible?
Yeah, I can see the screen, but just for a second. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm finding it little because I'm new to this technology. Actually, I'm doing it for the
Okay.
first time.
Perfectly
So
fine. I have enlarged it. I have enlarged it for you if it helps.
yeah, you've done it, but the first few lines are yeah, sure. Insistent, dissatisfied, without an aim, something that wished but knew not how to be. Teased the inconscient to wake ignorance, a throw that came and left, acquiring trace, gave room for an old, tired want unfilled, at peace in its subconscient, moonless cave, to raise its head and look for absent light, straining closed eyes of vanished memory, like one who searches for a bygone self and only meets the corpse of his desire. It was as though even his knots profound, even in this ultimate dissolution's core, there lurked an unremembering entity, survivor of a slain and buried past, condemned to resume the effort and the pang, reviving in another frustrate world, an unshaped consciousness desired light, and a blank prescience yearned towards distant change, as if a childlike finger laid on a cheek, reminded of the endless need in things, the heedless mother of the universe, an infant longing clutched the somber vast. Insensibly, somewhere a breach began, a long, lone line of hesitating hue, like a vague smile tempting a desert heart, troubled the far rim of life's obscure sleep, arrived from the other side of the boundlessness. An eye of deity peered through the dumb deeps. A scout in a reconnaissance from the sun, it seemed amid a heavy cosmic rest, the torpor of a sick and weary world, to seek for a spirit sole and desolate, too fallen to recollect forgotten bliss, intervening in a mindless universe, its message crept through the reluctant hush, calling the adventure of consciousness and joy.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Simi.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you. I hope you are, in between these lines, some of them kind of really pop up, because we have felt it. For example, look at this, the lines that here, maybe I can color them for you. Uh, See, the torpor of a sick and weary world. I think we all
Yeah.
can relate with this. This is how slowly Savitri will be revealed to us. We don't have to go. So there are depths in it, there are heights in it, and there are widths in it. And no matter how much we are able to touch, we will touch. That should be the spirit. So look at this. I think we all can relate the torpor of a sick and weary world, to seek for a spirit, soul and desolate, too fallen to recollect forgotten bliss. So we have become so kind of mired in misery, too fallen to recollect forgotten bliss. It touches
Mhm.
that kind of aspect. Intervening in a
Mm.
mindless universe, the routines, the mindless, the games that we have become a part of. Yeah. Thank you, Simi. So maybe Taru
Right.
can go ahead. Yeah.
Monica, should we? I mean, I feel that it's already too much that we have read. Should we
Too
go ahead?
much?
Should I reread or yeah? I mean, the sense like because there's so many lines, that I don't know.
Okay,
I
okay, good
personally
idea.
feel I couldn't give justice to, and we
ठीक
have
है,
already done 2 pages. Yeah.
ठीक है. No, we can also. So what we do is, see, it's not that we will not come back to these lines that we are reading. We will be coming back to them again and again, again and again. But yes, you are right. I get your point. And what we will do is, we will begin again from Canto One, Symbol Dawn, and the first page that Aradhana read, and then we can pick up those lines which most of us are relating with each of us is relating with. We can kind of pause there for a moment. So why don't you just read the first page again?
Okay. The symbol dawn. It was the hour before the gods awake. Across the path of the divine event, the huge foreboding mind of night alone, in her unlit temple of eternity, lay stretched immobile upon silence's march. Almost one felt opaque, impenetrable, in the sober symbol of her eyeless muse, the abyss of the unbodied infinite. A fathomless zero occupied the world, a power of fallen, boundless self awake, between the first and the last nothingness, recalling the tenebrous womb from which it came. Turned from the insoluble mystery of birth and the tardy process of mortality, and longed to reach its end in vacant naught. Should I stop? Should Regi read the next? It already feels too
Yeah,
much to me even to
yeah,
read.
yeah. So Taru, what we'll do is, don't bother that you are reading much. What matters is that we are reading, and it's not that we will be leaving them like that and we'll not be taking time to kind of stay with them. We will be doing that. But today I thought maybe we can get a touch of reading Savitri, because that is also very important. So I understand your point that it's already like, one upanyas can be written on what we have already read. Yeah, maybe Reggie can go ahead and read the next half of the page.
As in a dark beginning of all things, a mute, featureless semblance of the unknown, repeating forever the unconscious act, prolonging forever the unseeing will, cradle the cosmic drowse of ignorant force, whose moved creature, creative slumber, kindles the suns, and carries our lives in its somnambulist whirl. Athwart the vain, enormous trance of space, its formless stupor, without mind or life. A shadow spinning through a soulless void, thrown back once more into unthinking dreams. Earth wheeled, abandoned in the hollow gulfs, forgetful of her spirit and her fate. The impassive skies were neutral, empty still. Then something in the unscrutable darkness stirred, a nameless movement, an unthought idea.
Yeah.
Incessant dissatisfied without an aim, something that wished but knew not to be, teased the inconscient to awake ignorance.
Thank you, Reggie.
You're welcome.
So, any lines of whatever the 2 pages we have read, any lines, do they come like pop out for you, any of you? Just go through them once again if you need it.
I think I will go.
Yeah.
So, in the first page only, this a fathomless zero occupied the
Yes.
world.
Yeah.
As in, it's like what else is happening? Like what else is happening, kind of a thing. Na? Like it's all so meaningless and unnecessary, and yet
Yes.
it's
Yes.
captured the world like, oh my God, it's like it's just
Yes.
unbelievable how crazy it is, and yet I'm in it. And I
Yeah.
recognize it and I still don't recognize it. So it is, kind of virodhabhasi, if I can use this word, ki how, contradictory this is to, I mean, I don't know, I don't have words to express the beauty of this.
Yeah. A fathomless zero occupied the world. A power of fallen, boundless self awake. Yeah. So, just sharing, I'll keep on sharing small bits on it, and then we'll keep coming on with what lines resonate, just like Taru shared. So, this divine event that I have highlighted. So each and everything that is written here has a meaning. So, for example, this little comma here is not meaningless. I remember that I read somewhere that when he was kind of writing Savitri, and when he was losing his eyesight towards the end. So when he was telling this to the scribe who was writing it, Nirodh Baran, जो उनके डिवोटी डिसाइपल जो उनके साथ थे लास्ट के समय में, तो उनको वो एक एक कॉमा बताते थे कि लास्ट लाइट जो हमने लिखा था ना, उसमें एक कॉमा रह गया था. So each and every thing is very very important here, and just like यहाँ पे ये E is capital in divine event. So this E also has a meaning. This G is capital here in God's. This also has a meaning. And the more you stay with Savitri, slowly, you can do your own research. The more you will see that these things also have the significance. For example, I'm taking the significance of the divine event here. So what happened? As we discussed the first and second creation, in the second creation, before the second creation, uh, in order to rectify the mistake of the first creation, gods were sent. So they kind of became a kind of an intermediary कि हम तुम्हें भगवान तक लेके जाएंगे. So gods were created, all these gods like Indra Dev and all these Varun Dev. These gods were created in order to uh, kind of raise the inconscience to conscience. But later on, again, as we know about the second creation now, a ladder was formed. So between the first and the second creation, gods were created. So it is referring to those. it was the hour before the gods awake. So अभी वो हुआ नहीं है, अभी सिर्फ first creation हुआ है और वो misery हुई है जो the mistake that has happened across the path of the divine event. Now this divine event, I'll also share this document with you later. The divine event is the event of the creation. That is why this capital E. This divine event of creation that will go on and on for eternity. And this huge foreboding mind of night, this capital N also has a meaning. So this night is the extreme night of blindness, obscurity, unconscious, lifeless, as Taru said, lifelessly. We are just moving on and on and on with our routines, kind of a mundane, monotonous kind of journey. So that lifelessness and that darkness is represented in this capital N, night. Yeah. And that is what Taru referred in fathomless zero. This, all these metaphors are symbolizing that meaninglessness that we so many times we encounter in our lives. That what is the meaning of it all? Yeah. So anybody else would like to share, or even Taru again, if you want to share any more lines which are popping up in the first 2 pages that we have read?
If nobody else is going, I will go again very
Yes, yes,
gladly.
go again. Yeah.
So I think just after that, between the first and the last, nothingness. Like
Yeah.
whatever, in a sense, if I've studied, say, a little bit of Vedant, it's like, all is coming from a state of Shunya, and that's where we'll end up. Like you said, that basically, it came from the Supreme, and now Satyavan has to again merge back into the Supreme. Like that's the whole process, that's the whole game.
Yes.
So this nothingness, how it's like first and last. I don't know, it's
Yeah.
more both peaceful as well as not, because it's like there's so much of unnothingness in between. Again, coming from
Yes.
what you just picked, that what a kamal hai. It's just like too much to actually believe, and yet it's still happening. I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, but it's just too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
This NOUGHT, what does this mean?
Not
Zero.
And long to, yeah.
this thing. So I think Simi said it's representing zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm not wrong. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I think you're pretty close, because it says and longed to reach its end in vacant. So this is empty already, vacant
Yeah.
not. So an
Yeah.
empty zero, a zero which is completely empty.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's okay if we don't know.
Hmm. Hmm.
There is much that we don't know.
Because as you very rightly said in the beginning, it's actually all Greek, and because I happen to be this happens to be my first experience of this kind of I don't know what word I can describe for this, but I am in a very pensive mood today. So for me, each and every word is like it's a huge. It's carrying a huge weight.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am. I really don't know how can I put it into more clear words, but
Yeah.
there was a line I don't know on the second page, something to do with the connection with the womb, and the some clung to the womb. that
Yes.
that that still stuck with me. I just can feel that an unborn child looking for the mother. I don't know, but
Yes.
that's kind of struck a chord in me, and I don't
Yeah.
know.
No,
Mhm.
it's beautiful. It's really it's
Yeah.
auspicious. Yeah, Simi. Yeah, stay with it. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm there. I'm there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm taking these 4 lines. A power of fallen, boundless, awake, self awake, between the first and the last nothingness, recalling the tenebrous womb from which it came, turned from the insoluble mystery of birth and the tardy process of mortality. So, on this, I'll just say a few lines which I have with me from the mother. Even in the darkest unconscious, there was something like the remembrance of the divine origin. Now, this is what is to be kind of clutch. If agar hame pakad ke hi rakhna hai, this is what it is. Even in the darkest unconscious, there was something like the remembrance of the divine origin. And it had an urge to wake up to existence. I think this summarizes this, this thing that we see, human spirit, no matter how plunged it is in darkness. We have seen, read stories about German concentration camps, and still, even going through such great miseries, we still rise up. This want to rise up, this capacity to rise up is coming from that divinity that we are part of, that is our true kind of reality. So that is what it is written here, something like the remembrance of the divine origin, and it had an urge to wake up to existence. Further, mother says, but all the habit of the inconscient was so strong that it had a natural tendency to go back to the nothingness, to the meaninglessness, to the, if I can call, the tamas, the inertia. So this is what, Sri Aurobindo's and mother's work is to transform even the tamas and inertia, which is so strong, which makes us repeat our patterns again and again, even after knowing that I am repeating a pattern. That is the intensity of this inconscience that mother talks about. Yeah. Further, we saw that this emanation of light and consciousness had separated from its origin and had naturally fallen into inconscience, as we discussed. The result was that the world created was the world of unconsciousness, a world of nothingness, of obscure nothingness, where we kind of live a life, complete life, not knowing who we are truly, and we repeat that life again. Even after in another birth, we repeat the same life. Such is the power of this unconsciousness, that that kind of overwhelms or burdens us. So further, mother says, but in spite of everything, the divine origin was inside this and had an urge to bring up again a word of consciousness. Now, this is how you feel whenever you feel inspired, whenever you feel that, yes, I want to live a life which is conscious and awake. This is where it is coming from, originating from. And this is like the first attempt of waking up in the nothingness by something that was a faint expression of consciousness, but recalling, as Sri Aurobindo says here, recalling, as Sri Aurobindo says, the tenebrous womb from which it came, this bad tendency, this had a tendency of going back. So if you feel, this is so alive in our spiritual path. So mother is saying that this recalling of that unconsciousness again and again gives us, takes us back to that loop of patterns and unthinkable behaviors that we go on to. So I think we must be able to relate with this, that I may be able to sit in meditation for some while and maybe have the effect of meditation for an hour or two, but then I'm pulled again into that unconsciousness. Such is the power of that unconsciousness. So that is where it is referred as the recalling the tenebrous womb from which it came, because darkness is the origin of life. Not only, when we plant seeds, it has to go into the mud first, stay in dark for a long time. So when it sprouts outside, for example, if I am that leaf which is now out in the light, I still have that remembrance of the darkness that I went through when I was in the mud. So that is what it is referring to. Again, we again and again are pulled back into that unconscious, because unconsciousness was the very womb from which we came. But that is not the only thing. There is consciousness present, and we have to return back to our divine roots. I think I would like to stop here, because we have enough material to kind of stay with. I would not say chew upon, because chewing means that we'll be thinking about it actively, and we may think about actively. Maybe, a few thoughts may come to you, and uh, like unknowingly you may just receive something. So just stay with these lines and maybe read them again, these few lines that we have read. Take it very slow, there is no rush. As I said, the beginning is the mother and the end is the mother. So this exploration is happening in between. So we are not in a rush to complete anything. No curriculum is to be completed. So that is it from my side. If you guys have something to say on these lines or anything else, or how we should take the class ahead, most welcome. I think you're all absorbed in uh, Savitri.
Exactly.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, Monica,
Yeah, let's
have,
do.
have you gone through every line and taken your own meaning out of it? Have you an understanding about each line in Savitri?
Not at all. Are you crazy?
No, no, I don't know. So I have no idea.
No, no. So what I was doing is I was reading Savitri in bits and pieces. So, for
Okay,
example, we have started from book one. Okay. So
right.
I was reading it like, I would take maybe book 12. I read a few lines from book 12 and that resonated. And then maybe I understood some part. I did not understand much of it. Then something resonated from book 6. And then I read
Right.
those lines again.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
when I was kind of again revisiting these things, then I thought, maybe, to kind of share it and do it together. So it's not
Right.
that I understand each and every line, not at all, not at all. And I think one must let go of this idea that I'll be able to get Savitri, because I will never be able to get Savitri. What can happen is Savitri herself will be revealing as much as I am capable of to me in the course of time. So
Right.
this idea that I will be able to get Savitri is coming from the mind or the ego, and I somehow don't want to go there, and I don't want to get Savitri. I don't want to. I just want to enjoy Savitri. I just want to, be with Savitri, because I feel it's beautiful. So that is how I'm taking it at the moment.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's so one thing I was told before I stumbled upon Savitri a long time ago was that
Yeah.
Aurobindo is able to condense a lot of what he's trying to say in a few lines, which
Yes.
is one of the uh, pinnacle of this book. So if even in this last page, if you see
Yeah.
the end of page one, then something in the unscrutable
Yeah.
darkness stirred, a nameless movement, an
Yeah.
unthought idea,
Yes.
incessant, dissatisfied without aim, something that wished but knew not to be, teased the inconscient to wake ignorance. This,
Yeah.
in a way, epitomizes where human beings are with the ego, right?
Yes.
How we're blindly just going about, and we're in darkness without knowing, unknowingly even. So
Yeah.
he's able to condense a whole lot in just a few lines,
Definitely.
which
Definitely.
is the
And
beauty
that
of.
is why I said, even researches are still going on. People have done PhDs on Savitri, many people, not only one. Many people have done PhDs on Savitri, and it's an endless research uh, that is going on. And it's, I think we have to really go by our intuitive and feeling. So not bring too much of mind into the picture. Just pick up and be with those lines which resonate for you most in this phase. For example, maybe in in couple of coming months, you are resonating with more of these lines. So I would go, as Sri Aurobindo himself, as I shared with you how he was downloading these lines from the Overmind. He said that I don't think, I see and I feel. So
Right.
seeing these lines, being with these lines, and feeling these lines is how these lines are kind of revealed to us. And no matter what meaning is being revealed to us, it will be the right meaning for us during that phase of life. That I can, really guarantee you. As Mother has said, that all the difficulties are also there, and all the help to rise from those difficulties is also condensed in Savitri. So yes, you are right
Right.
that there is too much. There is too much. Yeah.
Right. I think Sri Aurobindo himself was very adamant that he would not write anything that he doesn't experience by himself. And
Exactly.
he himself has proclaimed that he would never do that. So
Yeah.
that is testimony to this fact that this is coming
Yeah.
out of his pure experience.
Experiences. Yeah. His, and actually Mother once said that whatever I was experiencing a night before, the next
Right.
morning, Sri Aurobindo showed me that these are the lines that I have written in Savitri. So he would be reciting these lines to Mother herself. And that is how their experiences were so correlated, as if it was one life, two bodies and one life, because they were divine manifestations. So divine is just one. So Purush aspect and the Prakriti aspect. So the divine mother and the Purusha. So they were going through these challenges in these years of what they were on the earth. And that is how they have written that it is an autobiography of both of them. So all these experiences have been experienced as a human beings, as a divine being on the earth. So
Right.
each and every line is an experienced line. Yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They epitomize a spiritual partnership in that sense,
Yes.
and it's a blessing to come across all of this.
Totally.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Reggie. Anyone else? Any concluding lines? Oh, that's beautiful. Good observation, Taru. So Taru's saying that we started reading with Aradhana, and Aradhana means prayer, and that is how we have begun. So that's really nice. Good observation there. Yeah. It is a prayer. Yeah. Life must become a prayer. Absolutely. Okay, then I leave you with this, and take it ahead as you wish, as it comes to you. Just take it in that way, and we'll see how we go about it slowly. And if you have more, if you do yourself more research, if you want to share some new insights, just feel free to share whenever we meet next.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, we'll meet on Saturday session. Yeah. Thank you, Taru. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Monica.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you.
Thank